Hello and welcome to Record Sports Hotline Live with myself, Daniel Caw. I'm delighted to be joined by my esteemed colleagues, Gavin Berry and Scott Burns, live from Celtic Park. Guys, how are you both?
Very well, thanks.
I can sense it's a wee bit noisy when you are, Scott. I'll come to
you. Yes,
first.
Apologies. I think the Green Brigade are behind me.
You're obviously there, fresh from Celtic winning 3-1 against Hibs in the Premier Sports Cup. I know Hibs rallied a wee bit towards the end of the first half, but pretty commanding victory for Celtic.
I mean, it's 3-1's probably a bit in the end flattering for Hibs because the Celtic once they scored were in total control and it looked like it was going to be a numbers game. They went 2-0 up, then you think this could be 3-4, and then suddenly Hibs got a goal out of nowhere and it's 2-1 and made it a bit nervier than it should have been. But Celtic came back out again and were strong again. But although Hibs gifted in the third goal, it was an absolute defensive calamity, which in the end killed their Premier Sports Cup dream.
Aye. And we should say as well, they're in this game today because they couldn't beat Celtic Hearts. Gav.
Well, and that's a problem.
Aye, I mean, they should have been seeded really and avoided this tie. But for Hibs, I think it's 8 goals now in 3 games they've conceded, 0 wins, and 0-2 against Celtic, but doesn't make for great reading.
On you go, Gavin, sorry.
No, on you go, Scott. Sorry, on you go.
It's been a common theme for Celtic, for that Hibs defence for umpteen seasons, and they buy different defenders, they bring in different players, and it always seems to be the same thing. It always seems to be end up in some sort of defensive calamity.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you're right, Scott. That's the thing that will be annoying David Gray because, as you say, when it's 2-0, they go 2-0 down. We have to say they improved actually on last week because I think they held out for 60 seconds longer before they conceded their first goal. So that's improvement. Although they were 2 down 4 minutes earlier than they were.
Gavin, you're looking for a job in the Hibs PR office.
But having worked so hard, having found a way back into the game, because you're right, you would be thinking then the roof's going to cave in here and this is going to be 6, 7, it could have been anything. They then get, a brilliant header, you have to say, to get back into the game. They worked so hard to get back into the game, and they were actually playing well after they scored for that wee spell. They could have even got an equaliser then early in the second half, but to concede the way they did, David Gray, if he had any, would have been pulling his hair out. But I think it's obviously early in his reign, but he is, an inexperienced manager. Malcolm Mackay's always talked about how he's there for David Gray to lean on him if he needs any advice. But the pressure is going to build early on. Obviously, the 2 Celtic games, the St Mirren game and the opening league game, and the Celtic Hearts defeat, as you mentioned, they're ones that certainly the Celtic Hearts one is one that they should have been winning. The St Mirren one is one they should definitely not be losing at 3-0. The 2 Celtic games, you're not going to judge him on that. But they play Dundee at home next week, and already you can feel there's already going to be pressure on him. So he's going to have to learn quickly.
But you can't just keep changing the manager, Gav. It's not always the manager's fault. I mean, how many good managers have come and gone at Hibs, and they keep paying the price?
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. Yeah, you're right to say that, but we all know how, Scott, you know exactly, you know how it worked. I mean, they're saying that at Rangers as well just now. They want to stop this cycle of chaos and managerial change. But when you look across there at what's going on, they're sort of teetering as well. A couple of results that could go the other way, and they're already saying by October, November, even though Philip Clement signed a new deal, he's going to be under pressure. So it's all right saying you can't keep changing them, but the bottom line is if Easter Road's empty and they're sitting, languishing near the bottom of the table, they're not going to stick with him forever.
What I would say is, though, that I think David Gray, because of who he is and the standing he's got in Hibs fans, will get longer.
Definitely.
And I think as it stands, he's not getting the flack. It's the board above him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Those decision makers, the Gordon family and etc., Ben Kenzo, they're the ones who are getting it just now. And I think they will be ones to continue to be in the sights unless things move on the park.
Before we go any further, we're getting comments in, and I should say, fire your comments in the comment section below. We'll try and answer all of them. Barry Cusick has written in live on YouTube asking, when is the draw and will it be shown here? We will be following the draw live as it happens for the Premier Sports Cup quarter final. But back to Celtic, Scott. I think when Celtic fans saw the team today, no Kyogo, Maeda sort of playing out of position, might have thought they'd be in for a tougher game, but Maeda was absolutely brilliant in that first half. Just, I don't even have the superlatives anymore to kind of describe just how much of a brilliant player he is to have in your team.
No, I mean, he's an excellent player. He can play in a few positions. He's got such energy, pace. But the good thing is that, I mean, he plays as a centre forward for the Japanese national team as well. So, I mean, when you say he's at a position, he knows how to play that role as well. And that's ideal, especially with Kyogo struggling with his shoulder issues just now. And Adam Ida just coming back and signing. So, I mean, the versatility there is important in Maeda. I mean, he's a quality player. He gives 100% in every game he plays and every position he plays. So I think his energy just brings so much to that Celtic team and brings a lot of concern to the opposition. You know what I mean? They just can't deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
Scott, we wondered why Adam Ida was so desperate to come back. I think we got the answer when he came off the bench. That roar sounded. Was it as loud as it sounded?
It was loud. It was even louder when he went through and goal. And Bosick saved at his feet. If he maybe had scored that, then the roof might have come off Parkhead.
Yeah, I was going to say actually, as much as I mean, Maeda, you're right, absolutely blistering start. But I don't know what you thought, Scott. But I actually thought Rio Hatate maybe went under the radar a wee bit today. I thought he was brilliant.
He's really good.
Hatate played well. I mean, he's a good player. I mean, moves the ball about well, great movement. That. I mean, there's a lot of Celtic players who played well with him. And actually, I thought Nicholas Kuhn, was man of the match. I mean, he scored the goal. Obviously, it wasn't a great goal in terms of a Celtic goal, but it was a goal. But he was involved in the build up to both the goals as well, and put a great ball through for the second goal. So I mean, I thought he was superb as well. I think he's really coming into his own this season. Now he's had a full pre-season and has been bedding in.
Yeah, and Brendan Rodgers obviously said last season he had that. It was a dental operation. Which was kind of held him back a bit. And then Scott, just on transfer business, we heard yesterday that Atalanta look to have dropped their interest in Matt O'Reilly. How much of a boost would that be? They've turned their attention elsewhere, haven't they? Just because they're not willing to meet Celtic's rising asking price. How much of a boost would that be?
I think the asking price is going to be the issue here. I mean, Celtic are wanting a club record. I'm not sure if the clubs out there are wanting to pay it. Southampton have fallen away. Atalanta claim they've fallen away, but I'm not convinced they might well come back in. You just never know, because at this late stage it's a game of cat and mouse, isn't it?
Yeah.
People are trying to get the best value. So I don't think you can never ever say ever. I mean, you just don't know what's going to happen. But I think that if Celtic can keep a hold on, then that would be as big as any signing, I would think, in this window.
I think in this day and age of obscene transfer fees and kind of average players going for huge money, I think it's fair play to Celtic for trying to hold out for as long as they can. The player doesn't look like he's itching to leave, although I'm sure at some point he'll want to test himself. But if Celtic get through this transfer window still with Matt O'Reilly, that is a massive bonus for Brendan Rodgers.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Sorry, Scott. The other thing I was just going to, I just wanted to ask you. I know we'll come to Rangers later, but obviously lacking in quality. But when you watch Celtic today, that's the quarter-final Premier Sports Cup. Can you see anybody stopping them at all? I mean, this time last year, Celtic lost against Kilmarnock at Rugby Park at this stage. They were obviously hurt over that. That ended Brendan Rodgers' perfect record in domestic competitions as a Celtic manager. But can you see anybody stopping them today when you see them in that form?
Sorry, Gavin, could I see anyone stopping them to what?
From winning the treble.
Winning the treble? You'd have to see. If you're a betting man, then all the money would be on Celtic as it stands. Rangers don't look strong enough to certainly compete with them in the league. Whether they can do it with one of the cups is a different story. Aberdeen, still 100% record. But interesting to see the acid test with Jimmy Thelin. Once they start playing some better teams, they come in with a bit of confidence. I'm really on form, so it'd be interesting to see them playing against Celtic in the next few weeks. But as it stands, you think Celtic will be by far the best team in the country, and no doubt they will strengthen before the end of the window.
Well, exactly. And I know Hibs haven't been up to that much, but that's the thing is, you talk about cup games, anything can't happen in the cup competition, but they're so dominant. They're just, the way they kind of blew Hibs away early on last week, and then again this week early on, they're just so dominant that you just can't see anybody domestically living on.
It's going to be very difficult. Very difficult.
Aye. I should say, Scott, I know you've got post-match duties to attend to, and then you've got both managers to catch up with, and I sense it's getting a wee bit noisy where you are.
Right,
So we'll let you go from the Hotline Live. Thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate it. And everyone can read your coverage of today's post-match and tomorrow's Record Sport.
Thanks. All the best.
Cheers, Scott.
Cheers. Thanks a lot. Has the draw
Gav.
started, Daniel?
Was that?
Has the draw started? Have they got
Not yet. Not draw. We will have the draw for everyone watching at home.
Have we got the hot balls?
We've got the hot balls, the cold balls, got it all sorted.
Because I mean, that is an interesting thing, Daniel. Obviously, this ticket row once again, you know, blowing up last week with the kind of Rangers and Celtic no visiting fans. But I mean, if Rangers and Celtic, or Celtic and Rangers are paired together, you know, and we'll find out very shortly. That would be an interesting aspect to it, wouldn't it? The away fans would have been the, you know, the cup competition.
Aye.
Presumably, you know, if it was Rangers at home, at Hampden, they would need to, you know, Celtic would need away fans and vice versa.
Aye.
So that would be another one. And what about this, Daniel? Answer me this: if Rangers and Celtic played in the semi-final and Rangers were still playing at Hampden, what would happen?
That's a very good point. I mean, you'd imagine it's still going to be at Hampden, obviously.
Would it? Oh, well, it wouldn't be a neutral venue. That would be very interesting.
So where would they play? Murrayfield, maybe? I don't know.
Well, I don't know. I think from memory, the season that Celtic played at Hampden, I think they might have played semi-finals at Ibrox there.
All right, okay.
You can check that out.
Aye.
And I don't know if that was the reason, because it obviously wasn't a neutral venue.
It is an interesting one. I do agree that a lot of Celtic fans will say, well, hang on a minute, that's not neutral. But I mean, Rangers, they've only played, 3 or 4 games?
I don't know. That's not the point. That is their home ground.
Aye, that's fair.
I mean, listen, the semi-final isn't until November, and Rangers will be back at Ibrox by then.
The draw, Gav, is just about to start. See, before it starts, Gav, this is one for you and for anyone watching. Get involved in the comment section below. See if you're Celtic and Rangers, Philip Clement and Brendan Rodgers, do you want a derby now, or do you want to save it for later in the competition?
Well, I mean, if you're Philip Clement, you don't want a derby right now, because I mean, he's talked about you're not going to see the best of his Rangers team until October. So he wants to avoid Celtic. It's bad enough having to go to Parkhead so early in the league campaign. I mean, he's going there in a couple of weeks, so he just wants to get out of that. Just avoiding, I would say, at this stage, he just wants to be avoiding a heavy defeat at this stage. So he definitely doesn't want a cup tie. You know, Philip Clement wants Spartans at home. He wants a home tie. He wants the easiest tie in there, or the easiest tie in paper.
Aye.
If you're Brendan Rodgers, I think he would take it.
The first ball out is Motherwell. While we're waiting on that coming to fruition, Gav, I'll maybe just try and read through some of the comments we've had from Celtic. Motherwell's playing Dundee United at home. Stephen Anderson's written in, honestly, wouldn't be surprised to see Celtic smash through the 100-point barrier this season. Nobody looks even close to them right now. Joe McCabe's written in saying the treble is incoming. Can't see anyone stopping us, particularly if we spend another few quid before September 1st. It does look quite ominous, Gav, doesn't it?
That's what I was saying to Scott earlier. That's the way it looks. As I say, 20-minute.
Aberdeen versus Celtic is one of the draws at Pittodrie.
Well, that's an interesting one. As Scott was saying, you know, that Aberdeen could be the team, perfect record, the one team that might cause Celtic problems, especially at home. That's a great tie.
Wait a minute, is that a 7 or a 1?
What, are you giving us the wrong tie?
I'm giving you the wrong tie. I was sure it said 1. Hold on.
Oh, you're kidding.
Rangers against Dundee at Ibrox.
No, at Hampden.
Hampden, sorry. Force of habit.
Yeah, these games are... But
sorry, I should say, Celtic have now been drawn out. They are playing Falkirk at home. My apologies for earlier. It's Aberdeen against Spartans. Aberdeen at Pittodrie. I got my 7s and 1s mixed up. So there you go.
So it's Motherwell, Dundee United, Aberdeen against Spartans, Rangers against Dundee, and Celtic against Falkirk, yeah?
Yep, 2 home draws for both sides of the Glasgow's Big 2.
Interesting.
there's no, I mean,
so you would expect the big two. I mean, the big two will be favourites to go through. Obviously, being at home, you would expect Aberdeen to join them. Great tie for Spartans, right enough. I have to say that's a that's a bit of a Premiership away. That's what they want. They deserve that after beating Ross County. So Premiership draw, and then Motherwell Dundee United. Well, I mean that's effectively a toss of a coin, isn't it? But it's looking like a strong, potentially strong semi-final lineup because Aberdeen, the way they've started the season, started so well under Jimmy Tilleen.
Yeah, I would say, Gav, do you know what kind of, well, obviously Falkirk could give Celtic a game. There's no doubt about that, and I think they will give them a good game. However, I kind of wanted them to avoid Old Firm just purely because they look brilliant just now, Falkirk. They knocked Hearts out yesterday, obviously. I think if the draw had been a wee bit more favourable, they could have been looking at maybe even a final this season, but going to Celtic Park, that is a really tricky one.
And it's back to Celtic Park for John McGlynn, who had a spell working there, didn't he? Was it Neil Lennon? Was it, or was it Brendan? It might even have been Brendan Rodgers in his first spell, but he had a sort of scouting role there, didn't he? But great. I mean, what a servant John McGlynn has been. You know, obviously that spell at Hearts as well. So, it's great for him and great for Falkirk.
Aye, absolutely. Right, we have talked about Celtic, obviously. We covered the Celtic game. The other big talking point of the weekend, Gav, we have to talk about Rangers. They obviously won 2-0 against St Johnstone yesterday, but it was far from a straightforward victory.
Yeah.
The best place, I think, for us to start is the opening Rangers goal. I mean, I don't even know where to start. What did you make of it all?
Well, I suppose what we have to say, since last night, the story has come out today to say that the SFA are going to review the audio between the referee, Matthew McDermott, and Greg Aitken on VAR to try and establish exactly what went on in the build-up to the decision. So, of course, Cyril Dessers scores a goal, appears to foul Jack, or the referee appears to think he has fouled Jack Sanders in the build-up to it. Gestures seems to indicate that it's a free kick, but of course the big grey area here is whether he actually blew his whistle. Now, what you can hear loud and clear on the broadcast was that he blows the whistle after the ball hits the back of the net, but the St Johnstone players seem to be claiming that he also blew before Cyril Dessers hit the shot. Now, if that is the case, the referee was in the wrong because it shouldn't then have gone to VAR. If he's blown his whistle, of course, you know what it's like, Daniel. Anybody who played football from a very early age, not that I was any good, but even if you're not, you know the phrase, play to the whistle. So if he blew the whistle for the free kick, then the goal should not have stood. If he didn't blow the whistle until after it, then he's quite within his rights to then be referred to VAR and check the monitor. Well, look, that's what needs to be established. And maybe the audio will clear. Maybe the audio exchange will clear that up. If he was asked, did you blow your whistle for the free kick, or if there's any way of hearing from the broadcast whether he actually did. I couldn't hear a whistle blowing, but I mean it's hard to tell. Plus, you're not in the pitch, and the St Johnstone players are going to say that, of course, aren't they? Well,
we've had plenty of comments and reaction on Record Sports social media channels. I should say that Steve McAteer says this. It's audible that he blew the whistle. People at the game heard it.
Okay.
He wasn't the only one saying that.
Right.
But Nick Brown came back saying, surely the whistle is irrelevant. If there was a foul by the forward, as indicated by the ref's hand, then action gets taken back to that foul, regardless of any whistles. I mean...
No, I don't think that's the case, is it? I thought a referee's not told to sort of let the attacking phase of play finish and then.
That's what I thought. That's why I was a bit confused there. That's what I thought.
But what does surprise me is, I mean, if you're a referee, and maybe I'm being naive here, but because with the introduction of VAR, maybe they have changed how they're told to go about it. But you would think instinctively as a referee, if you believe there's a free kick, at that point you would instinctively blow your whistle. That would, so or maybe they're told, hang off. You know, like if somebody's going through on goal and you think it's a free kick, don't blow your whistle, let it go. And then when the goal's scored, then we'll decide. But it's the fact he gestured as well. That's when I think it is a bit cloudy. I don't think that would defend the St Johnstone players if they did stop, because as I say, you're told blow to your whistle. But it's easy to say that. I mean, if they've gestured and think it's a free kick, then they would stop.
Yeah.
Well, some of them would stop.
A couple more comments that we've had in for it, Gav. Alan McColgan. It's not confusing. There was no foul. Dessers scored and it was goal. End of debate. Steve McAteer saying he blew for the foul. At that moment, the ball was dead and it should have been disallowed, whether the foul was correct decision or not. And Stephen Metcalf says the fact the ref had already signalled and blown for a free kick should have voided the goal. Does that change your thinking about it at all?
The ref had already signalled and blown for a free kick. Well, we don't know if he blew. That's the point.
That's the key. That's the key.
And the other thing is, and I'm not saying it escapes the controversy, but as some of the points that people have made is, we have to say, I don't think it was a free kick. You know, it wasn't a free kick. So
no, I don't think so. No,
I don't believe it was a foul by Dessers, and the referee, having reviewed it on the monitor, thinks that. I don't think many people looking at that could say that was a free kick. But of course, that is a separate issue, because if the referee blew for a free kick, and that's what the St Johnstone players are claiming, then St Johnstone within their rights to be angry. And I think they're also within their rights to be angry, even if he indicated, although he wouldn't have, although the referee wouldn't be breaking any rules, having done that.
Well, Jack Jones, who's watching live on Facebook, he says refs should be issued with trumpets. That's a good initiative that hopefully someone from the SFAs is watching at home.
Vuvuzela.
Vuvuzela would be good, the other thing that we have to talk about, Gav, that we haven't discussed yet, is Rangers post-match celebrations.
Yeah.
Because it certainly caused a big reaction on our social media channels and all across the country. Before we go into the comments and hear what some of the Rangers fans had to say about it, what did you think of it?
I thought, well, I think we'll hear him in a minute where Clement says that they were pre-planned. I can understand the intent. I can understand the intent that they've obviously agreed before the game. Let's, acknowledge the fans, and because let's not forget it was a poor crowd. They're trying to get the fans on side. They're not playing that well. They had a midweek, Champions League exit, which has cost them the chance to make £40 million. Everybody's down a bit, so I can understand them wanting to acknowledge the fans and those who turned up, because let's not forget the amount that stayed away. So, they had been there on Wednesday night and they were let down. A lot of people just couldn't be bothered going to the game. A lot of them can't be bothered going to Hampden anyway. They don't want to make the switch from Ibrox to Hampden. So those who did turn up, I can understand the players and the manager and the coaching staff wanting to acknowledge them. I just think the optics of it, I don't think it had to be, I don't think that, the wild celebrations, I don't think they had to be bouncing around like that. I don't think that looks good, because the bottom line is, as critics of it are saying, it was a 2-0 win over St Johnstone. It's the kind of result that Rangers, that should be, routine for Rangers, or has been certainly, over the years, throughout their history. So I can understand that it just looked bad. So yes, to acknowledge the fans, yes, but not in the manner that they did it. I think they could have gone over and waved, or just said thanks. I don't think the bouncing up and down, they could just have applauded them.
Aye.
If the fans want to bounce up and down, then that's fine. They can. They're out. It's their Saturday night. They've paid their money to go.
Right.
That's fine. But I don't think it looked good.
Before we move on to some of your comments and questions at home, here's what the Rangers manager had to say after the game.
So you mentioned the crowd. Obviously, attendance was a bit lower today. How important is it that the supporters stay with you even through difficult moments?
Yes, it's super important, but difficult moments. Today we won with 2-0 and we should have won with 5-0 or 5-1. That's the reality. So it's not, everything is not that bad that some people feel, but I understand that. And I said it this week already a few times. if you're all your life, because being a Ranger fan, it's from the crib for a lot of people. If you're all your life at Ibrox and you're used of being there and with all your family together, and suddenly you have to move to another stadium for home games, yeah, for a lot of people it's a big adaptation. It's a difficult thing. So I hope that more and more people can step over that and miss also being with the team. And I'm sure all the fans who were here today, they were really happy that they were here. And it's about us giving them good football, good results, and like this, that everybody can be happy again.
That's the Rangers manager there.
I have to say that I don't think I knew that an absolute cock up. What's happened. With Ibrox and the fact that they can't play there. But I don't think I thought it would be as bad as it has turned out. I think it's the kind of apathy around the move. We just saw the attendance. At the Dynamo Kiev game. I mean, if that had been a Champions League qualifier at Ibrox and they've got a 1-1 draw away from home, the empty spaces, the crowd on Saturday night, I can understand a wee bit more just because that sort of first round of the League Cup, I don't know what they played Morton last season at Ibrox, didn't they? I don't know what the crowd was, but it wasn't great. I mean, there would have been more, don't get me wrong, on Saturday night had the game at Ibrox. I can understand that one a wee bit more. Dynamo Kiev one, definitely not. I mean, even the Motherwell game, for the first game there, I thought there would be an element of a wee bit of a kind of novelty factor in that they would sell out. And even then, I think there was, a lot of spaces. So I think I probably underestimated that a bit. But also, when you read comments from people and you listen to people on phone-ins and you talk to people, I think it's with good reason for a lot of people, as Phil Clement touched on himself there. People have a routine. I think especially maybe sort of older people who have gone, for certain years, and they don't want to change routine. They don't want to be put out. I can understand for people like that saying, "Well, no, I'm just not going," and that's something that Phil Clement has got to deal with. That is where it's unfair on him because he's inherited that situation through no fault of his own, and he's now suffering from it. So that, as I say, I can see why then they did what they did on Saturday night. It just didn't have to be as exuberant.
Well, it's obviously the Hotline Live, and we rely on all of your comments and questions at home. Keep them coming, by the way. As you'd imagine, Gav, Celtic fans and other fans have been having a kind of laugh at Rangers' expense following that celebration, but there's still been quite a strong reaction from Rangers fans as well. This one from Greg Robbie: the most cringeworthy thing I've ever seen from my team, a total embarrassment and absolutely toe-curling. Drew McMaster: cringeworthy. We're one of Scotland's biggest clubs and we're celebrating a small win against St Johnstone. Save it from when we actually win a trophy. Eddie Craig: is this a wind-up, celebrating a win against St Johnstone? And Rob Jones: what's the celebration, acting like a trophy? And this is actually, this one from Paul Oliver, Gav, kind of chimes in with what you were saying. Recognise the fans, yes. They should have just went over and clapped, but to celebrate and do the bounty was ridiculous.
Exactly. That I think that is the point. I mean, don't get me wrong, I have seen some comments out there, maybe not coming into us, but just on social media and things. I have seen a lot of people sort of, defending it and saying, that they were within their rights and why not. So, but maybe that's what the majority are saying, and are writing into us. And that's the thing. I mean, were the players, if it was pre-planned and they're saying we're going to acknowledge the fans and sort of celebrate with the fans, that's why I'm saying it's the optics. Are they celebrating the fact that they beat St Johnstone 2-0? No, probably not. They're going over to, sort of try and connect with the fans, but that's the way it looks to everyone watching, and people who are writing into us. It looks like, Rangers are celebrating the fact they've beaten St Johnstone 2-0. I think they're just trying to create, because I noticed some, those who were defending it, some were saying, well, Borussia Dortmund do it every week. I think, is it Borussia Dortmund maybe have a tradition where they go over and, although I'm not sure the stands at, I'm not sure the half-empty Hampden was quite the yellow wall, but you know what I mean.
Well, Greg Stevens has actually written in Facebook saying the Union Bears were outstanding, kept the great atmosphere going all game, and sad to see a small crowd. Players were acknowledging the Union Bears' effort and having a laugh. And I'll finish on Rangers with this one, Gav. It comes from Bob Thompson. He says, Philip Clement might be forced out unless he can improve on things. It's early yet, but things are not looking good. Needs a couple of good wins under his belt and stop these nervy wins, to be honest. Is that how you see it as well?
Yeah, actually, I think he's hitting the nail right on the head. That's what I was going to say. And I think we touched on it when we were doing the Hotline Live last week with Keith and Scott. They need a big performance, you know, like they need that. Every week they're kind of going into games and it's like they need, you know, for the fans to start believing they've got to go out and hammer somebody 5-0 or 6-0 and play flowing football and everybody has a 9 out of 10 game. But the reality is that, you know, that's unlikely to happen. You know, Craig Levein, we know what he's like, St Johnstone, you know, he's going to play on that, the nervousness, and he's going to make it difficult for him. I have to say that although they didn't get that swashbuckling performance, I think there were bright parts in the game, and you know, Philip Clement said there they could have won 5-0 or 5-1, and I think that's probably true. You know, they had plenty of chances. Danilo had a couple, so you know they could have got that morale boosting scoreline, but of course they could have went the other way. St Johnstone hit the post, and that's the problem. There's always that wee kind of it's a lack of a clinical edge for Rangers there, and always that wee bit of vulnerability that you just feel, you just sense every game that, and it's a wee bit like last season, you know, under Michael Beale. I think there was a similar situation. They had games where they just were getting through. You know, even that Morton game that I referred to earlier at the same stage of this competition last season, they weren't exactly convincing. Yeah. They had a game against Motherwell at home in the league where they just squeezed by. Actually, I think they beat Betis at home, didn't they? That was the one when you thought, right, that's going to ignite everything. And then they played Motherwell and they toiled. Every game's a struggle. I don't think it was quite as bad as that on Saturday night, but I understand that fans are looking for a bit more dominance in their games. But there were positive aspects of the performance. You know, Hefty looks like he could do a job, obviously filling in at left back. He looks like he could be a decent signing. I thought as much as Rabbi Matondo gets, you know, criticised, he's much maligned, I thought actually he was okay. So they were, you know, I thought they were decent. They were decent, and it was a comfortable enough win. But there's a long, long way to go. You know, you just think a big fall could still be coming. You know, it was like the Motherwell game in the opening league match where they, you know, 2-1, and then Butland has to make the save. They've got Ross County next week. Is that going to be another struggle? And then the big one at Celtic Park the following week. Is that the day? You know, if they lose heavily, then there's real problems.
We should say plenty of comments coming in, and we appreciate them. Danny Cool, who's watching live on YouTube. Gavin, this is the first time I've listened to you, and you seem very reasonable. I don't know if that is a family member, Gav, or not.
Yeah, that must be my mum or my wife.
Thanks for watching, Danny. We appreciate it, and I can assure you he's not always this reasonable. I should go back, Gav, and finish. We've had tons of comments coming in after the Celtic game. I'll maybe go back to them. Joe McCabe we had earlier on, actually. Let me have a look. Hold on. Woozy, who is watching live on YouTube, says the treble is incoming, which, I mean, is it too early to be talking about a treble, Gav?
No, definitely not. Not when Celtic are in that kind of in that form. And as we say, normally you would say, well, Rangers, you know, would be the team who would have the best chance of stopping them. And I think that's when you see that kind of fragility about Rangers. I mean, Rangers fans don't have any belief that they can beat Celtic. Certainly not in the next couple of weeks coming. You know, you never know. By the time it gets to the semi-final or the final, we don't know what's going to happen in the rest of this transfer window. Rangers might go and sign, you know, a few more quality players, and then come the later stages of the competition, might be in a position where they could stop Celtic from winning the Premier Sports Cup or even the Scottish Cup come next season. But I think Celtic they're probably odds on for a treble.
Aye. Marie, who's watching live on Facebook, says Celtic are simply streets ahead of their nearest rivals, Aberdeen, Hearts, Dundee United, Motherwell, Kilmarnock. It's hard to see any other than business as usual from the champs. I think very strategic in who she included in her rivals.
I was just about to say that, actually. I remember Scott Brown doing that very thing in the first season when Rangers came back up to the top flight, and he was asked about, Rangers mounting a challenge and he deliberately rhymed off Aberdeen and Hearts and other ones where it would be very tough, and they started rhyming off all the other teams.
See, to be fair as well, Paul Lynch in the comment section saying Celtic have virtually the same squad as they did last season and couldn't complete a treble. So, I mean, I actually agree with that. I don't think it's a fait accompli that Celtic are going to just, romp it from here on in.
But I think it's clear to see that, Brendan Rodgers had just come back, and let's not forget all the issues that Celtic had to deal with last season, injuries to key players like, Hatate was out for a long spell, and there were others. So you had the whole Abada situation going on at one point. You had issues with the Green Brigade, didn't we, at one point, with the club were at loggerheads with them. So there were mitigating circumstances. It's clear to see, during pre-season and the early weeks of this season that, Celtic are a different force. And as we've touched on, Rangers are probably weaker. They're certainly weaker than they were when they had that spell when Clement first came in and he went on that run. They're certainly weaker than at that point.
Woozy, who I believe is a Celtic fan in the YouTube comments, I just think this is funny. Hambrox is a shambles of a stadium. If we can get that trending, that's the new name of the stadium. That would be very good. I'd like that. Before we go, Gav, time is against us.
Okay.
But I think we should very quickly recap on the Premier Sports Cup quarter-final draw. It was conducted a little earlier on. If you weren't with us, here's how it looks. Motherwell versus Dundee United, Aberdeen at home to Spartans, Rangers versus Dundee, and Celtic at home to Falkirk.
Ties to be played on the weekend of 21st and 22nd of September, I think, if that's a Saturday and Sunday, if I've got my dates right.
And I believe so, and I believe that a December final as well.
December final, November semi-finals, first weekend in November, and of course teams will be in about Europe by then. Well, I think Celtic will have played their first Champions League game before that quarter-final tie, and I think possibly Rangers won't have played their first Europa League group game till the week after. But anyway, it'll all be happening, so there'll be plenty to talk about in Hotline Live, and Keith will be back from his well-earned holiday by then, hopefully.
Oh, I don't say that, Gav. I was enjoying a break from him. We should say, whatever happens, it's not going to be boring. And we will be with you all the way through this season on the Hotline Live. Thanks very much for your comments and contributions today. Thanks for watching. And Gav, it's always a pleasure.
Thanks, Daniel.
And we'll be back tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Cheers.
Great stuff.